Well, good evening to everybody that is watching us via Facebook Live. We want you to come in, share, and like, share, comment on this video that we have. Tonight is a special conversation that we're doing. This is a PK conversation, but not just that. This is a family affair, as I've stated before, because I'm privileged to have my wife and my cousins, in whom I love all of them dearly. And so I'm happy to have Sister Shayla on first. Wave your hand so they see you. Wave your hand. Wave your hand. Wave your hand. Then I'm happy to have my cousin Adrian on. Adrian, wave your hand so they see you. So they see you. And then I'm happy to have my other cousin Austin on. Austin, wave your hand so that they see you as well. So tonight, I've asked him to come on, and I invited him to come on because I wanted to have this conversation. I was inspired to do this from having talked to both my wife and Austin about different things they've experienced growing up as PKs. And I believe this is an important conversation, a necessary conversation, especially because there are many times that people do not understand what PKs deal with, don't understand what PKs go through, and don't understand the burdens and some of the baggage and some of the things that PKs have to carry with them and that they're not able to really express. And so tonight is one of those conversations that we are privileged to have and to really bridge a gap. So I want to first start off by go around the room, just introduce yourself first off to the people, and then we'll go from there. All right? So Austin, I'm going to start out with you.
All right. Well, I'm Austin Turner. I'm in North Carolina right now, by way of Oklahoma City and Kansas City. So I've been here for about 16 years now. And I am a pastor's child 2 times. So my father is a pastor, and also my stepfather's a pastor. So I'm gonna have a little good amount of information for you today.
Amen. Adrian, you're next.
Hey everybody, I'm Adrian Patterson, and as you can tell, the panel is all family. We love each other. I'm from Peoria, Illinois, which is 2.5 hours south of Chicago, 2.5 hours north of St. Louis, and 2.5 hours west of Indianapolis, right there in the middle. And I am the husband of Alicia Patterson. I am the father of Adrian Jr., and I just love God. I love his people, and I love my family.
All right. And last but not least, saving the best for last. I happen to know her some kind of
Well,
way.
hold on now,
something
dang.
Special. Something, I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding, Last but not least, I want to introduce my little wife. So, wifey, introduce yourself to the people.
Well, I mean, you basically already did. But my name is Shayla Woodberry-Brown. And I am a pastor's kid. My father is Pastor L. Mike Woodberry. But I come from a preaching family. I have 4 uncles who were pastors. And I don't even know how many cousins that are in the ministry as well. So like Austin said, I kind of bring a plethora of knowledge to the table as well.
All right. Well, thank you all for, like I said, once again, saying to do this, because like I said, this is a neat conversation. So the first question that I want to pose, because I had about a couple of questions and we may change this and there. But the first question I want to ask is, and whoever wants to start off, you can start off, or I'll call you by name. But the first question is, talk to us about how was it growing up as a preacher's kid? Austin, I'm gonna start with you.
I started off as, when I was young, as an assistant pastor's kid, and growing up in Mount Olive Baptist Church, I almost felt like a pastor's kid just based on how it was, treated, and which was never negative. And I loved it growing up to start off with, and especially the way I was embraced in Oklahoma City. And as a young child, you seem to, really embrace it just because, it comes with, certain perks, I guess. And it comes with, I guess a lot of notoriety depending on the size of your church, and everything there. But overall, to start off, as a young child, I really loved it. It was a blessing in a lot of ways. It put, a certain amount of respect on the way, on me and how I, had to present myself at all times. I don't really think I realized it to be, more so of an issue until I got older and experienced some other things. But to, I'll keep it, short and simple here. But overall, I love to start off with. And, it's something I definitely had to grow into and learn as I got older. And, I started to change my lifestyle and my interests and things of that nature. But I think it really molded me to be the person I am today in terms of how I handle a lot of situations and the expectations I place upon myself. I think all came from, being a PK initially. I'll kind of start
there. All right. Adrian, talk to us about your experience.
Yeah, so growing up as a PK, a preacher's kid, for me and my sister and my brother, for the record, my father, he's a preacher, and he didn't become a pastor until I was 19 years old. My sister was 20, my brother's 21, and so we grew up as preachers' kids, but not pastors' children. And so we had an interesting upbringing because our closest friends were also PKs. So we were really insulated with that. We didn't have to live this life void of having that camaraderie of another pastor's child as a friend. But my sister's best friend was a PK. My brother's childhood best friend was a PK. My best friend was a PK. And so we had that relationship that really shielded us and protected us from a lot of other external influences. But we recognized early the impact of our lives. And it seemed like there was this common phrase, PK, preachers' kids are the worst kids. I'm sure you have heard that before. Preachers' kids are the worst kids. But we tried to change that narrative or to distinguish ourselves from that narrative. And so, like I said, it was very interesting growing up as a PK.
Okay. Honey, floor is yours.
You can just call me Shayla.
You can call no other panelist honey, for the record.
Right. Oh, but seriously, growing up as a PK, my story was kind of like Adrian's in the sense that my dad started preaching. I think Kayla and I were probably about 10 or 11. And from there, it wasn't even a year before he was called to be the assistant pastor at Unity. And then from there, it was just then co-pastor, then eventually senior pastor. But he didn't actually become senior pastor until we were 21. We had actually just graduated from college when he became senior pastor. But still, growing up a PK, a preacher's kid, similar in the respect that I'm going to agree with Austin that it's a level of respect, like reverence, respect, and you basically know that you have to act a certain way, and you also know that when not even just when you're in church, whenever you're anywhere and there's any church people around, that you have 100, 200, 1,000 parents that have the authority and the right to discipline you. And that's something that the average kid doesn't really experience or understand that a PK deals with. But other than that, I'll say that my growing up years as a PK, it probably wasn't like a lot of people would think it was. Now, my dad he was kind of strict, but he also spoiled his kids rotten. So it wasn't like, I'll never tell anybody that I felt like I missed out on anything growing up. I'll say that.
Okay, so one thing that I've noticed from each of you's answers is you talk about having all the eyes on you. Talk about how everybody's watching you. Everybody's watching what you do or watching hearing what you say. So, was there a point in time did you all feel that I struggled with my own self identity because of the fact that you have so many people watching you, or they have these expectations of what a PK should be, to where you may feel like I have to be this and not be myself? So did anybody struggle with a self identity?
I tended to struggle with it as I got into my teenage years, to be honest with you. Uh, when you're young, you really don't. I mean, certain simple things you can do, like like in church and things of that nature, where you can be, disciplined or chastised about. But when you get into your teenage age, and you tend to go and do activities or go on dates and things of that nature, and there was oftentimes I felt like if I saw anybody from church, usually I was going to hear a report from somebody somewhere, and even as a teenager, you're already kind of rebellious in some ways. Not to say that I fell into the bad PK circle, but you're just a teenager. And I found myself often going out of my way to find places I felt like the church influence wouldn't be on me. So finding different areas to go hang out or different places to go have dates, and to be honest with you, at the end of the day, and I can speak for my younger sister as well, because it was just me and my younger sister, that we both left the area once it was available to us. So we both left and went away for college for those type of reasons of just getting away to kind of get away from that immense pressure that we had, 24/7, it felt like, originally. But I wouldn't say I struggled with my identity. I just struggled with just wanting to be myself sometimes. That's it. And just, I had to put on a facade, not a facade when I was at church, but I had to act a certain type of way, a lot of people looking at me. There were also expectations of which other parents pointed at you to show other kids how to act. And I didn't like that all the time, because it almost meant that you were supposed to be that perfect person, even though they don't know what conversations you were having at home or anything like that. So just things like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Austin. I remember, just a small example, my 8th grade graduation. So I'm 13 years old. We graduated from 8th grade, and me and my friends, we just thought we were the stuff. And so we went to a pizza restaurant after graduation. We went to a pizza restaurant. And we were just having so much fun, just laughing and everything. Nothing, to be considered unholy, or nothing wilding out or nothing like that. But I remember at the pizza restaurant, there was a pastor that was there, he and his wife. And when I made eye contact with him, automatically in my mind, it just triggered, Adrian, be on your best behavior, because whatever he says can go right back to your parents or can go right back to the church. And we didn't even say anything. I didn't even greet him. He didn't greet me. But just knowing that he was there caused me to have to put maintain my behavior to make sure that I was going to be legit among my friends, but also back at church. And like I said, I was 13 years old, and just that small psychology, that small nuance, that small psyche is pretty much how we've had to frame our lives to let us know that somebody was always watching. I'll have to put all this in a wrapper and let you know that I'm so grateful that my parents weren't abusive. It would be so different if they were an abusive parent, but they were so loving. I can attest with Shayla, my cousin, that my father, he was definitely he was strict in the fact that dad just don't play. He just didn't play, but he just loved us so much. And my mother, who was a preacher as well, loved us so much that it was such an enjoyable experience growing up with them and in the church, to be able to travel And so, yeah, we always in the back of our mind, watch how you act because it's going to get back to the people that you have to worship with.
And I think on for my response, I'll say I agree with Austin and Adrian that no, not necessarily my self identity, but it's just going back to that there's people always watching. Like I remember one time we were, um, I think we were in college, we were like 19 or 20, and we had gone downtown to Bricktown for Fourth of July. They used to have the big festival in Bricktown every year, and we were just down there having a good time. We weren't drinking, we weren't smoking. It was a concert, and we just happened to be there. Well, then, like 2 days later, it's people calling my dad. What were the twins doing in Bricktown? Well, weren't you in Bricktown too? But it's just the fact that
Like, how you see me?
Right. I didn't see you, but you saw me. And it's just the fact that a lot of times it's almost like people, when you're a preacher's kid, people feel like they're undercover detectives or something. They're always trying to catch you doing something wrong. You might not even be doing anything wrong, and most of the time we're not. We're not doing anything wrong, but it's like they go out of their way to try to catch you in some compromising position.
Wow. Wow. So did that ever make any of you feel like what's the point of me even doing anything fun? Like I'll as well just stay home and not do anything. Did any of you ever feel basically like that you just want to kind of like, keep yourself locked in because you knew all of these eyes were on you?
I did want to have fun, and that's the thing. I did, and I was gonna do it. I was just gonna figure, ways of separating like I told you, like separating myself from areas I felt like. I mean, because think about it this way, we're all pastors or preachers' kids, right? And let's just be honest. Just in the same way, our fathers may have ate certain places when they just wanted to eat by themselves. Sometimes they wanted to go out and eat and not be stopped eating or anything like that. So think about it in the same way of us just going out and hanging out and thinking about places that we can go and have fun where we won't have. It doesn't mean that we're doing the worst things or anything like that. It's just more so like, let's say, if I'm in 10th grade and I have a girlfriend, right? That is going to be expressed to everybody in the church of who she was, what she looked like, whose child she was, or anything like that. So it got to a point where it was frustrating in some way. And like I said, that's what affected my decision to actually just leave and just go somewhere where I wasn't known as Ricky Turner's son, or James Love's son, or Bobby Love's stepson, or anything like that, and just being a regular person and not having those expectations set upon me. Because even when I met people and they knew who my daddy was, it caused them not to act themselves because of what they thought I was. You get what I'm saying? So it almost put a moniker on top of me of thinking that I was some type of sterile box, that no one could be themselves around because they felt like I would report it and then it would fall down and sprinkle to whoever else from there. So
right. Yeah, excellent point, Austin. Excellent point. From my perspective, I never felt insulated or I never felt that I was that I couldn't go to I guess recreational places. Of course, nightclubs, that was out. Of course, that wasn't even an option. But that wasn't even because I was a PK. Honestly, I didn't even know of the expression of a PK until later in life. I really didn't, because I got saved at an early age. I was 13 years old when I got saved. And so it wasn't the feeling of having to walk circumspectly because I was a PK, but more so because I was saved and I wanted to be a saved young man. I really did. I wanted to live saved. I wanted to live holy. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite because, we just over and over talked about from our former pastor about hypocrisy and how easy it is to be a hypocrite. And I was like, I just do not want to be a hypocrite. I want to live holy, but I didn't really know how. I was doing it to the best of my ability until we came into that knowledge. So again, it wasn't the mystique or the label of being a PK. It was really the fact that I had gotten saved at an early age, that I consciously chose not to go certain places, not to hang with certain people, not to get in other things. And just like Austin said, it kind of put me like in a bubble because they stopped cussing around me. They didn't, want to say things around me. They didn't talk about what they were doing with their girlfriends around me. And so that it somewhat shielded me from that.
I do feel like in some regards it kind of makes people feel like they have to treat you a certain way. I'll say probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I started dating this guy, Chris, long time ago, way before you.
Yeah, long time ago. Well, just look at the ring. Long time ago. Get it right.
But when we were talking and getting to know each other, it was all just cool. It was like any two young people getting to know each other. And then he found out my last name and everything changed. And it was, oh my gosh, you're Baptist royalty. No, I'm just Shayla. That's who I am, And it really kind of made me feel some type of way because it's like, you've put me on this pedestal, but I don't belong there. If anything, I feel like Adrian said, we should all be trying to live upright as saved people. It shouldn't be like saved people are here, but then pastors and their families are here. No, we should all be striving to reach that level of security and salvation,
Right, absolutely. So hitting that, and I think that's important, honey, that you hit that. And I think that's important with so many PKs is that because of, like Austin, me and you have talked about this, because of who my dad's last name is and who my dad is, then sometimes it's like there's this pressure now that has been not just placed, but also all of a sudden it's like, as you just said, Shayla, as it said, or as Adrian just said, y'all can't do this, y'all can't do it. Basically feel like you can't be yourself around. People couldn't be themselves around y'all because they felt like y'all was going to preach on them. They felt like y'all was going to judge them. But you still just being who you are at the same time. But it seems like there is this pressure or there is this unfairness that's been placed on you. And it's like, that's my dad. I'm in church, but I'm still my own person. I'm separate. So talk to us about just that, where you may have felt that pressure. You may have felt that like that where it's like, treat me as me, not because of my last name, but just treat me like as me.
Anybody? I mean, literally, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I felt more direct pressure from, the church more so than my parents, if you get what I'm saying. So, it's not like I walked in my room in my house and I was expected to be, holier than thou. But when I got certain places, it was always that expectation, set upon me. And it's actually pretty funny now that that people you went to church with, and since I left, I'm not there every day, but I go home about twice a year, so that I have conversations with folks that I grew up with, or even older people that and they seem to look at me now and say, wow, I never knew you were like that. I never knew you were so outgoing or so so talkative and things of that nature. And it's all because the way they approach me, being that you're Ricky's son, and my dad's a pretty stern person. He's strict too. I can say that too. He's pretty stern. If you know Ricky, he's pretty Um, pretty straight up guy. And the only part they see of him most of the time is him being a pastor, not him being a Dallas Cowboys fan, or not him, watching, TV with his son, or going outside and playing basketball. They never see those type of things. So it's almost, a type of thing where, they only see one aspect. So they place that same aspect upon you, and your siblings. And, I felt like there was a lot of instances where I don't feel like people knew me all the way as just Austin versus just, Pastor Turner's son.
Yeah, growing up, it was the just keeping it 100 here. What we kind of dealt with many times was people that didn't really care for your parents. And so because they don't have the guts to confront the parents, they try to take it out on you as a child.
Stay there.
Yeah. I mean, that's just real. And you become quickly acquainted with the spirits of jealousy. You become quickly acquainted with the spirit of hatred, condescending tones. You hear gossip and you hear all of that. And as a child, you really don't know how to process it. You really don't. But as I grew up, like the Lord, he spoke to me years ago, maybe about 15 years ago, and he told me something that really changed my life. He said, know the sound of jealousy and make no adjustments. That's what he told me. He said, know the sound of jealousy and make no adjustments. And I said, yes, sir.
My goodness.
Because so many people, they have this, they think that it's a prestige to be a pastor. They think it's a prestige to be a PK. They think it's a prestige, and they totally don't understand the nights and the long nights and the weekends and the vacations that you skip over because you got to be a part of a funeral. They don't get the fact that you got to work extra hard on your day job because you got to pay for your children's school while you're also being a blessing to the church. I mean, they don't understand that you're literally taking your money to put people up in hotels who are homeless. They don't understand all of that stuff. They don't get the backstabbing. They don't get any of that. But they're thinking that it's so prestigious to be sitting up there in the pulpit, to be behind the microphone. And but that opens up such a portal of envy, of jealousy, and it's nothing but the devil, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but many times they take it out on the children. Many times they do. And so I know many PKs whose childhood experience was absolutely horrible because they were a preacher's child. I mean, absolutely horrible. The expectations was unrealistic. The envy was present and real. I mean, it's just keeping it real. And were it not for the grace of God, they would have gone insane. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Were it not for the grace of God, they would have gone insane. They would have been crazy. They would have done some things or tried some things. They would have been pushed off into the world, into the streets. But God covered them, and they're still standing. I mean, that's just keeping it 100.
Since we're in the 100 stage, Go ahead, Shayla.
That's real. That touched on. I was wondering when we were going to get to the nitty gritty, the real stuff.
I was going to get there, but Adrian took it over. Yeah. I was going to get to that.
You can come back to me after that one. Go ahead,
Shayla. Yeah, I completely agree with what Adrian was saying. And, my situation was unique in the regard that my mom passed away when we were 13. And so not only was my father a preacher, he was a single preacher. Now, I've already been threatened by my father not to say too much about his personal life, so I'm going to leave it there. But what I am saying is that it made a difficult situation that much harder. And like Adrian said, there were times that Daddy might have said something in the pulpit that somebody didn't agree with, and they took it out on us. But we didn't have that buffer of a mother to say, it's okay, it's going to be all right, all that other stuff. And so a lot of times it was stuff that we kind of had to figure out on our own. And like Adrian said, if it wasn't for the grace of God, like I know, and I'm sure everybody in this conversation knows of PKs who, as soon as they were able to, they left. They left the church and they didn't look back.
Didn't look back.
Because like you said, we see behind the scenes, we see the tough stuff, we see where our fathers bury your loved one and then the next day you're talking about them in the street.
Right.
We see all that stuff, and people think that PKs are up here spiritually, but we wrestle with the same stuff that everybody else wrestles with. It's not easy to hear people running your parents' name through the mud or all that other stuff. It's so much that we have to deal with, and it's literally. I'll say this, and I haven't just talked to you guys. I've talked to a lot of PKs. As a matter of fact, we kind of came up with this group that we call the PK convention because pastors' kids love conventions. So it's just a group of us pastors' kids, and it's a safe place for us to talk. Because one thing that I will say is that you learn early on as a preacher's kid that you can't talk to everybody. Even people that you think are your best friends, it's certain stuff that you just can't talk to them about, and you know that. But it's having that safe space. It's being able to openly and honestly talk to my Father and openly and honestly talk to my Heavenly Father above everything else that has helped to keep me rooted and grounded and staying in the church, because it's not an easy life. And there are, like I said, there are some PKs, they left, and even 20, 30, 40 years later, they'll tell you, I'm never coming back.
Yep.
Austin, I know you wanted to come back to that, right?
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Since we're at this point, there was a time when I really struggled, like really bad. I went through a public divorce in the church, and as a PK, I wouldn't wish that on anybody as a pastor's kid going through that, and just receiving opinions, overhearing conversations, and me being at the age at that point, which I think I was in 6th or 7th grade, to really understand what people were insinuating and things of that nature. And not only that, going through a divorce, in a church, also going through a marriage on the other side, to a recently divorced pastor, through my mother. So once again, going to a church and becoming a PK through a recently divorced pastor, and then receiving that same type of insinuations originally. So it was a really tough time, to the point to where, honestly, I couldn't have these conversations with my parents because I didn't know how to express myself. And I didn't want to go and say, hey, hey, daddy or mama, I saw such and such say this or say that. Or say, it's just more so stuff you just keep bottled up inside. And it kind of turns you, and it's conversations I can have with my siblings now that we're older. My younger sister is, of course, about 7 years younger than me. So she didn't get the same experiences, but she did get some experiences, of which I found out when I got older. Because of course my mom has actually written about a lot of this stuff, and she's actually written books on how to deal with divorce in the church and things of that nature, and especially from clergy side. But it was a couple years where I really struggled with not even wanting to go to church, to be honest with you. And this was even as a teenager, and we already, as teenagers, sometimes we have that battle anyway, but it was just a lot of, outside forces that really, made me grow up fast and get to know who I was and how I, responded to certain situations that were upon me. And this is supposed to be a safe haven for you. And it really, kind of threw me off, threw my whole personality off for a while, of just, just dealing with divorce in general, but also getting the pressure from the church and everyone's opinion. I think, pastors' kids need that safe haven anyway. But I think specifically any child that's going through that on a public display, I always, I don't want to compare it to, the president of the United States, but imagine the president getting divorced during his 4 years and everybody knowing what's going on and asking them questions. And it's almost like they got to hide them away to get that type of thing. But for us, it's not that. We still have to be at church every day. We still have to sit there. We still have to, be present. And it really formulated my way and how I deal with things now. I think it actually, actually greatly affected me in a positive way in some ways, and how I, handle situations now. But there was no way for me to really get through it outside of, praying in my relationship with God at that time, and, me just finding other outlets to get all that frustration out of me at the time. So I know that's something that's not talked about often, but there are people that are going through these type of things in the church, and you may not know. The average person that attends the church may not know. They see them every day. But they could be struggling just as much as the parents would in so many ways, and nobody really paying attention.
Wow. So, like I say, y'all are helping a lot of people, because this is why I want to have this conversation, because there are things that people don't know that they think they know. And so, and like I said, me and Austin, we've had these conversations plenty of times. And I know, of course, me and my wife had them, and I'm glad to have Adrian as well. So they talk to me about this, about, you talk about betrayal, you talk about hurt. We've heard it so many times mentioned about how pastors have to lead when they're bleeding. But nobody really talks about a PK having to still be at church when they're bleeding. Nobody talks about a PK having to be at church when they're bleeding, or a PK having to be at church, having to put a smile on their face, having to still be respectful to that Sunday school teacher, that deacon. Matter of fact, even another kid who knows what's going on. Nobody knows about that stuff that you all just brought out to us. So talk to us about, and give advice to another PK about, how did it feel being a PK, but you're bleeding at the same time. And as Austin, you said, it's bottled up in you, and you in a way you don't feel like you can talk to
anybody. I would say more so, expressing to your parents, more so how you feel, and have those conversations. I think they need to happen. Just kind of ignoring and, because sometimes you do need that buffer, man. As a child, especially, you need that buffer between you and those outside forces, especially, certain ages. Some things, you just can't help. But I think conversations in general would have definitely helped me along the way. And that's on both sides. There's some ways, I could have had those conversations myself with my parents, and then also, my parents checking on me, multiple times, just making sure that I'm okay and checking my pulse, to make sure that I'm kind of in tune. And then also from, an outside factor of your average church member, just realize that they're people too, and, check on them as much as you would check on any other child going through anything else. And realize that they're people, and that they need help just like anyone else. They're not perfect, and neither are their parents perfect either. So, just all the way, all across the board.
Let me just add to that and say I definitely wholeheartedly agree with what Austin's saying. Most people know that our life-changing perspective was that our mom died when we were 13, and our older sister died when we were 16. And one thing about the PK life is that um, you don't grieve privately. There's always people around. There's always people looking at you in your face. One of the things that we talk about as a family is it was almost like in both situations before we got home from the hospital, there were cars lined up and down the street before we could even actually get home. Um, and don't get me wrong, there was a lot of love and support shown during that time, but there is absolutely no downtime. Like, I'm going to say this, and I know some people who may be watching may be a little shocked, but PKs understand this. Even in the midst of grief, um, you're still expected to go to church. Your dad still preaches, you still direct the choir, still teach Sunday school, whatever, whatever ministry you serve in. And it's not expectation. Let me make this clear. It's not expectation that our parents put on us. It's expectation that the church people have put on us. Like, oh, you're a super Christian. So even though your mom just died, go ahead and lead this song. But no, I'm hurt. I'm in pain, just like you would be if your mom died or your sister died or whoever died. And so, what I think that what I would like for a lot of people to for people to understand and to know is that we're human. We're human like everybody else. And one of the great things that my father did for us is he got us into therapy. And that was at a time when a lot of Black people were not in therapy and definitely not a lot of church people. But it was what we needed um, at that time. And it was one of the things that helped to save our lives. I'll say that one of my friends from Alaska that I went to high school with, she actually got me a mug that says it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist too. And I wholeheartedly believe that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just going back to the idea that there are a lot of struggles that we deal with as a PK or as PKs that sometimes we feel like we're alone.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Um, I remember speaking with a fellow PK, and they told me that they felt that they just couldn't cry about what they were dealing with, that they just could not cry at all, that they always had to be strong. They always had to, in some way, show that they've overcome this. And, I was thinking, we sing that song, Hallelujah Anyhow. Never let your problems get you down. And I know it's a beautiful song, but it's not biblical. Nowhere in the scripture says hallelujah anyhow. The Bible says, confess your faults one to another and pray that you might be healed.
Yeah.
In other words, all of us are going to be dealing with hurt. We're going to be dealing with pain, and it is not for us to just go it alone. It is a false and almost a demonic expectation to have people feel like they cannot express themselves. You got to have a group of people so that you can just cry on their shoulders, so that you can bleed on them, so that you know that you can express yourself and all of your hurt, all of your humanity, all of your frailty without being judged, without being criticized, without having to know that they're going to use this against me next week. You got to have all of that. And many times you really have to walk alone. It's a shame. It really is that you have to isolate yourself so that you can heal yourself. I mean, it's a shame that that has to happen many times, because that too is unbiblical. You know, we're supposed to be in a loving environment where we're building on one another. Iron's supposed to be sharpening iron, but many times we just had to step away, have a sabbatical so that we can then be healed to go back to the church. But many times Christ is telling us that, you know what, I really want y'all to take a vacation. It is not an unholy thing to take a vacation. It's not a sin. It's not an unholy thing. I mean, really. And then when you look in the scriptures, they put this word in there. It was so funny to me. It said Jesus resorted into the mountain away from his disciples. Hold on. I said he resorted? He went on a mountain resort away from the disciples that he chose so that he can be recouped. I mean, y'all, this thing is real. It's real. Sometimes you know what? I can only imagine what Shayla went through when her mother passed, when her older sister passed. I can only imagine. And we're triggered in our mind as being members of the church to just love on you, to just love on you. But many times you just want to be away. You just want to be left alone. I just want to be in my corner. I just want to go on a trip. I just want to be left alone. Right, but there's always there that expectation that you have to be back at church. You got to be back in the public. You got to be back on the pulpit. You got to be back up behind the microphone. But that's just one of the things that comes with being a preacher's child, being in that family and all of that. And I'm going to tell you, I said this earlier, but were it not for the grace of God, I mean, you're talking straight jackets. I mean, you're talking attempted suicides. I mean, you're talking all of this stuff that the blood of Jesus has spared us from. And I'm so grateful that he did.
Mm-hmm. I want to piggyback on what Shayla said as well. In terms of like therapy, you know, we grew up in a time where therapy wasn't really recommended or, you know, even thought about at a time. And I think, you know, I got into therapy as, you know, in my late 20s, 30s, and realized a lot of things that affected me as a child coming from the church, that affected the way, you know, I approach church now. Also how I approach even my wife per se, that I had to shed myself of 15 years later. That I think that it's important for those type of avenues to be recommended or even, you know, offered to, you know, kids, especially pastors' kids in certain situations or in general. You know, not just to say that, you know, you're going to have your conversations with God. You're going to have, you're going to be in the Bible, but sometimes you need that specific help that it's there for a reason, for, you know, them to have. And it just kind of piggybacks back on, you know, we're not perfect. You know, we're not just going to read the scripture and the next day come back and be okay. You know, there are, you know, extra methods of help that are needed for us. And I think that it should be offered and respected if they do take that avenue.
Mm-hmm. My. Like I said, y'all, this is a powerful conversation that I'm glad we're having. And so since we hit on these things, let me ask you this question. When you're growing up as a preacher kid, and you've had to deal with these public displays of hurt, these public displays of betrayal, your life is basically in the public. When you're growing up as a teenager, as a kid, did you ever have that conversation with your parents basically saying, I don't want to go to church I don't want to go to my dad's church. I don't even want to go to church with my mom. Basically, did you ever have that conversation with your parent basically said, I just want to go to a completely different church? Away from you, away from, because you're dealing with all of this, you know, in public.
I was scared to say something like that. First of all, I would. It's not something that I could imagine myself saying. To be honest with you, It's just more so. It's like it's for me. It was do your time. Get to high school. When you graduate from high school, you have your choices, and you go do it from there. My thing was, and it's just kind of like, you know, like we said before, you were taught to kind of just deal with it. Don't ask no questions. I'm from a don't ask no questions generation. You know, we don't. Who are we to question and tell our parents what church you want to go to. Don't matter what happened, So, and then also, it's also a pressure from, if things like that do happen, then questions and murmurs start formulating through the church, and people start asking more questions. So it almost makes it worse. And you also think about how it looks for your parents as well. So the same type of thing where I never wanted to put, any type of questions or any type of bad type of karma on my parents, from actions that I have done or stated before. So I would never ask my parents to go to another church at all. It just never was a question that even came up in my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me either. I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Me either. I never did. I never had a desire to go to another church or to leave where we were to go to what I would perceive to be greener pastures. Never had that desire. What really helped us, my family, was that our whatever church issues we had, it caused my immediate family to draw closer together. My immediate family, we're very
Right.
close. My father, my mother, my sister, my brother, we're very close. And it didn't happen just now. It started years ago. And I praise God for that, because it didn't have to be. But what we were experiencing, or what we did experience in the world of the church, we really we were able to discuss it among ourselves. It was so interesting. We would just, one person would sit in the living room of our home, and then we see somebody sitting in there. So then another person would just step in the living room, and then after a while, the whole family is in the living room, and we're just talking about what we're dealing with, and where we're thinking that we're going, and all of that. So family was such a therapy for us. So I never did have a desire to leave our church.
I'll say that I didn't have a desire to leave Unity. Now, when we were in high school, and I say we because my frame of reference is always going to be me and my twin sister, especially from the growing up years. Um, but when we were in high school, this is kind of a funny story. We would go to Sunday school at Unity, and then we would sneak off and go to Greater Mount Olive for morning worship service. Now, Uncle Glenn would always call us out, because no matter how many people were at Mount Olive, he knew his nieces were there. Um, and then, like I said, we did it a lot, so much to the extent that when we went to college way out in Western Oklahoma. And one day, this lady was there. She was offering information about a law school here in Oklahoma City. But we walked by the table in the student union, and she said, "Oh my gosh, it's the Woodberry twins. Y'all ought to be ashamed of yourself. Y'all haven't been to church in a long time." I'm like, "Man, we don't go to Mount Olive. We go to Unity." but it's just basically, I said that to say, even if I had a desire to leave Unity, they would have sent us right back.
Right.
I would say that, kind of, I guess you could say, there was a point in time, especially, during my teenage years, when I was going to two different churches, with both sets of parents. So, I guess you can say there was a point in time, especially initially when my mother was, church searching, where I did feel some sort of a relief of just going and just being a regular person, just walking in church, sitting down, nobody saying, just saying welcome, and kind of leaving right after without, certain conversations, especially in the midst of what was going on at the time. So I guess you can say there was a short period of time where I did get some relief of just being not present in that animosity for a certain amount of time. And I think that was somewhat comforting for me for, a short period of time. That, of course, it's not anything I had conversations with. It's just something that, I just happen to enjoy over, a period of a couple months of just going somewhere and not having expectations placed upon you.
So next question I want to ask, and like I said, this is another question. This is something like I said, me and Austin have had this conversation. I'm not going to dip real far into it, but I'm just going to ask this question, and he knows where I'm going when I ask this question. As a PK, talk to us about being used by members who wanted to get close to your father. Now, I'm not gonna share the rest. I'm not gonna share the rest with me and Austin talk about it. That's probably this question just the way it is.
Just to be straightforward, when you do have, and Shayla could probably speak to this too as well, when you do have a single father and, of course, their kids are the key to their heart most of the time. So a lot of times, if they feel like they can do certain things to get your attention, of course, that gets the attention of the parent. And just in any other situation, church is just like anywhere else when it comes to certain things. Certain things are going to be used to take advantage of certain things. Now, of course, I was a little bit older at the time. My sister was like I said, she was 7 years younger than me. And me being a teenager, right, becoming a teenager, there's certain things that could be placed upon her that would be easier, to coerce her into certain things. But it happens. It happened to me. It made me grow up really quick to see intentions at that point, because before that I didn't see intentions. I just saw people just being nice because they were being nice. But as certain things came along, and and as my dad did find a love interest at some point, and you see the difference in attitudes after that, it kind of, like I said, that was the part of my turn off period. With there was never a point where I left church. Even when I went to college across the country, I didn't leave church, but it always had me sit back and look at people twice, in terms of what are your real intentions in terms of getting to know me or offering me certain things. Because I can probably speak for you guys. Look, as a PK, I had the best pastor's anniversaries that anybody can ask for. Like, listen, as a PK, listen, that is just a stripe that we're gonna wear on our chest forever. There were certain days where I didn't expect to fix my plate. Stuff like that. We just being real, right? But and I don't want to say that I don't want to be all negative in this thing today, but listen, I enjoy being a PK just as anybody else. There's a lot of pluses that come with the PK. It's not all negativity. It's a lot. It's probably a lot of good stuff. I love being a PK for the time I was there. There's some things that happen, but overall, I just think there are some people that are used that'll take certain things, take advantage of certain things just to get to your father, or to put themselves in better position to do anything. And that doesn't even have to be romantically. There could be positions in the church that people want to get to you, to have that some type of camaraderie with you, to get just in the house, because not too many people come by the house. But if they can get a reason, between their kids and stuff like that, just to build that friendship outside of church, they feel like it'll lead to something else.
Ain't nobody ever fixed my plate. I need to know which church you done went to.
It was only on pastor's anniversaries.
I ain't never had nobody fix my plate because I was a PK. Man, I feel slighted. I feel cheated. Man,
and then the nice silverware too. See, you had on the paper plate for one day a year.
Oak Ridge has real china. I will say that I was amazed by that.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Uncle Ricky got the hookup. He got the hookup. I'm telling you, he got the hookup. But honey, did you have anything you wanted to ask about feeling used?
Absolutely. like Austin said, now it wasn't all bad. Now let me say that my father became a widow in 1996, and women from churches near and far baked every kind of meatloaf, fried catfish, meat, in anything you could, cakes, pies, and we paid for that because we ate every drop of it. But also, I will say this: when we got ready to go to college, because there were women who were vying for my father's attention. My dad didn't have to buy anything for our dorm rooms. When we came home, people would just give us money or whatever, this, that, and the other. It really helps, like, when you're a parent, a single parent trying to put twins through college, every little bit helps. But in addition to that, no, it definitely wasn't all bad. But like Austin said, not just in the romantic context, you also get the people who say, um, well, twins, can y'all lead vacation Bible school? Your dad would want you to.
Mm.
I talked to my dad quite frequently. He didn't say anything about leading vacation Bible school, but it's just always people always trying to um, use something against you, or try to get their way. It's like you're always in the picture somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, definitely thank you for those responses. I got a couple more questions. Then I'm thank y'all, thank my cousins and my wife for their time tonight. I don't want to hold them up any longer, but I got a couple more questions, and then we'll be through. Talk to us about the highs and the lows, because as you say, it's not all bad being a PK. So talk to us about the highs and the lows of being a PK.
Most days were highs for me. I genuinely enjoyed being in church and having the relationships that I had before. I like I said before, I think I'm the person I am now because of being a PK and just having, I know how to handle pressure continuously, not just in certain circumstances, just more so, um, on a daily basis. But for the most part, I love I'm not gonna lie, I love the attention. um, I loved, constantly, having the conversations and people having certain expectations of me. Cause I even, I have high expectations of myself, but, I loved, going to church. I loved, even now I go back and I love having, just as long of a line as my daddy do. Just because I came home to visit, it's just stuff like that. But on a daily basis, I loved just being, there and people coming and speaking to me and the relationships that I built from every church, and you can tell kind of how you're appreciated by kind of when you go back, and this is even from going back to Mount Olive. I've been to Mount Olive in a while, but before when we left Oklahoma City and we came back from Kansas City sometimes to visit, just having and talking to those people, and just like I said, the relationships that I built, because I feel like I don't feel like I would have known every single person the way I did if I wasn't a PK, or people wouldn't took their time out of their day to come talk to me if I wasn't the PK, and show their appreciation to me because of my dad, or to my dad because of that. And also, like I said, one thing that I did really enjoy is just seeing how many people appreciate and reverence my father, or my mother or my stepfather, and just how much they mean to them. Because you see your dad, he gets you up, you go to work, you go do this, but you don't see um, the kind of appreciation, the kind of admiration that people have for them outside of them just being your dad. But when you see that, and you see people that they've done things for, and all the times that they may have left and everything like that, people do really appreciate that, and they'll show that to you as well. And like I said, for the most part, I really enjoyed being at church, both churches that I had, and being a PK just from that aspect.
Yeah, I think I've already mentioned many of the lows,
Right.
but for the highs, I would say one of the greatest things is the fact that you have access to some of the greatest preachers, greatest evangelists, I mean, of our time. I mean, we've been blessed to meet some highly anointed persons to sit at the feet and hear their wisdom, not only from a spiritual standpoint, but also from a domestic standpoint, to be able to glean from them. That access, I do believe, was afforded because of our lineage as in the church, and our lineage as preachers' children and pastors' children, now bishops' children. So I've been blessed to meet so many different people that I don't believe I would have had that opportunity were I not enfranchised with the in the ministry, and that's something I don't take lightly. That's something that I do praise God for, but that's also something that I have hoped to give to persons who don't have that lineage. That, based upon your desire to grow higher in the Lord, I would love to pair you up with other persons that I believe can sharpen you. So, we're not trying to hoard all of the blessings or anything like that, but definitely share that out with others. One low came to my mind, and that is the being misunderstood. And get this, being misunderstood for being stuck up for some reason. I mean, really, for some reason, people think, I mean, and it's just something that you it's something that you overcompensate. I mean, you're extra friendly to people, you're extra kind, you're extra liberal to people so that they don't put that mantra of you on you or being stuck up. I mean, I hated that. And it's like, ain't nobody trying to be stuck up, but we got this expectation that we got to be perfect, we got to be right, we got to be on time, we got to be present, and then we're humans. And so we're trying to be perfect and trying to fit into that bubble and all that stuff. And you got to battle with, he's stuck up. He think he all that. It's like, man, I used to get so frustrated with having to deal with that. I was like, if you really knew me, you wouldn't even say that. I promise you would not say that at all. And it caused me again to overextend myself to some people so that they wouldn't have that thought of me. So that's another big low, I think, is the mystique of being, or the misunderstanding of being stuck up.
I agree. I mean, what else can I say? I agree. We're always getting accused, my sister and I, especially if it's us together. And that's something else. People are always watching, like, how sometimes we as young people, we might sit together in church and just laugh about something because that's what young people do. But if we laugh, we're laughing because we're talking about somebody,
Right.
and then it becomes this whole big ordeal. And I'm like, okay, but ma'am, your kid was laughing with us too. So, but as far as the highs, I'll definitely say one of my favorite things is the traveling. Love going to congresses and conventions, love traveling with my dad, preaching across the country. As he got older, and as he trusted us more, he even let us drive him places. And most of the trips were good. Now there's the one trip to Roswell, New Mexico that we don't talk about, and it's never to be mentioned again. Um, but all in all, getting to see literally the length and breadth of this country, due to my father's ministry, and a lot of times, really not having to pay for much of anything to get there. But then, at the same regard, a low for me is, like I think Adrian said, having to miss out on time spent together as a family. There have been times that, because now it's just, or for many years it was just me and my dad and my twin sister, and so we would always try to go out of town for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, or do something special for my dad for his birthday, and we would plan a trip and just cross our fingers and pray that nothing happened, but inevitably something happened. And so the trip gets canceled, and then you just have to deal with it. That's something that I was telling Chris about, that, when we do have kids, that we're going to have to teach them early on that there's going to be certain things that mom can be at that dad won't necessarily be able to be there because of church stuff, or just stuff that I'm already thinking of now for down the road, way down the road, but not too
Down the
far
road,
down the
down
road.
the road, down 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 the road.
But other than that, I want to say there was another low um, that I thought of while we were talking. Um, nope, maybe it'll come to me later.
All right. Well, like I said, then we about to close, y'all. This is just a fun question, and then we'll be done. Last question, we'll be done. I'm so grateful for all of you, like I said, family. If you knowing then what you know now, if you could go back in time to your younger self, what you know now, and then also this can help PKs now that are younger than y'all, knowing then what you know now, what would you tell your younger self and tell a younger PK right at this moment?
It's okay to ask for help, and to have those actual conversations with your parents. You may not express yourself, but just have a check-in, in terms of just a pulse of where you're at. It doesn't even matter if anything's going on specifically, but just, you never know how, things affect children. And even when they're elevated or have a spotlight on them as such, um, you know, when they're a pastor's child. And secondly, I would tell myself to be myself, because I don't think I was myself in front of people until I got older, or until I left, or even, towards the end of my high school years, until, just to be myself in front of people, and not carry that cross all the time, that I did before. Just carry that moniker that I have to be perfect. Because I feel like myself, my parents raised me right and everything, that if I was being myself, I was still good. I just didn't have to hold myself to a certain um, personality all the time, and I feel like I could have expanded some more, friendships, a little bit more, if I would have just been myself early on.
Yeah, for me, always speak up for yourself. Don't bite your tongue. Say it. Just say it. Don't hold back. Say it. And ask for forgiveness later or understanding later, but say it. Yep.
What I would say to my younger self is to know, appreciate, and understand that your dad always has your back. Even when it comes to church people. I know sometimes you may be afraid to say what the church people have done because you don't want to cause problems. But in all honesty, your parents just want to hear from you, and they just want to know that you're okay, that you're succeeding, you're thriving. And if like we discussed before, a lot of times when church people talk crazy to us PKs, it's because they really don't have what it takes to say it to the pastor. So I mean, it's not so much tattling, but if they're challenged, then they'll back down and you'll see them for who they really are. So basically, don't be afraid of these people. Goes back to what Austin said, just be yourself and know that I would also tell myself that in the end, it all works out.
Hey man, well listen, thank you all so much who have joined us via social media. We got so many comments. This won't be the first. This won't be the only one we'll do. We'll do others with this panel, and then of course, like I have other cousins and friends as well and family. So we want to do this again. But I want to thank my wife and I want to thank my cousin so much for being a part of this. Y'all stay on for a brief minute. I'm about to end this broadcast, but God bless you all that tuned in. Continue to share this and continue to chew on what these PKs have spoken to us tonight. All right. God bless you. Take care.